Hello, and welcome to the Pixel Perspective. Okay. Hello,
Tip
and
up
welcome
the tongue, teeth in the lips.
to.
Get your vocal warm-ups.
Well, the thing is I always go hello, and then when I look back or listen to it again, I'm like, God, that sounds stupid. It sounds too like I don't know. So I'm trying to change it up.
Okay.
Hello, and what?
Man, you really switched that one up.
I know. Hi. Hello. How are you? Hi, everybody.
Oh my God.
This feels so dumb, man.
Harry Carey
Okay.
over here. Hi, everybody.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Pixel Perspective Podcast. I'm one of your hosts.
Hold on. I got to stop you right there. You always say that and it bugs the hell out of me.
What?
Welcome to another episode of Pixel Perspective Podcast. The name of the show is just Pixel Perspective.
Okay. All right. I won't say podcast.
It's just weird. I'm a grammar and like English weirdo. And so every time I hear that, I'm like, you're leaving out the. You're leaving out the.
But the isn't part of the name. It's just
the Pixel Perspective Podcast. Pixel Perspective is the title, right?
Right.
So take out Pixel Perspective, it would be the podcast. The Pixel Perspective Podcast.
Or just Pixel Perspective and not podcast.
True. Yes.
I'll do that. It's obviously a podcast, so I don't really have to say podcast. It's just, I don't know. It's just a thing. Hi, welcome to Pixel Perspective. I'm one of your hosts, Adrian. And this is your other host, JJ. What's up, JJ?
What's going on, man?
Man, this is like
stuff.
the busiest, this is the most discussion about an intro to the show I think we've ever had. I don't think I'm going to cut a lot of it. I'm going to put some of that in there.
It'll probably be a little bit in there. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, just trying to figure out how to introduce it. JJ is so like great at doing this, and I have never been able to nail it. I always feel so stiff.
Don't say I'm great. I literally do what every other YouTuber does and do it. What's up, everybody? It's the same thing, and I'm well aware of it. It's just easy.
Well, the way that you go, like, you don't have to stop and think about it. It's like the words just flow out of your mouth so naturally. I struggle with that.
Don't struggle with that. That's my advice. Is don't do that. So there you go.
Well, man, I am excited for today's episode because we are talking about our favorite Nintendo consoles. And that's going to be a fun discussion. I'm curious to see what yours are.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we ranked them in order of our preference too.
Yeah, so I did. I told JJ earlier I don't play favorites, but he insisted that I put these in order, numerical order based upon preference.
Top five means top five. It doesn't mean pick five. It means top five.
Well, for this, I think it makes more sense that it is an actual ranking system because there's not that many Nintendo consoles. I mean, there are, but to put into a list, a top 5 list. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You could name most of them in 5. Or most of the good ones anyway.
I think so. Yes.
So before we jump into that,
surprised by mine though.
I don't think I will. I will tell you if I am, because I don't think I will be.
Fair enough.
What have you been playing, JJ?
Oh man, I've been playing work a lot. I finished up 2 more games off of my list for the year.
Nice.
I finished Metroid, the original NES Metroid. I actually beat that in an afternoon.
Wow.
Wasn't expecting it to be that short, but it was, and it was tough. But I really, really enjoyed the heck out of it. A lot of people said I should play Zero Mission because I guess it's like a remake of that one.
Yeah.
And I think I will at some point, but I was expecting this to be like really rough to get through, but I thought it held up actually like really, really well. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Had a good time with it, and the fact that I was able to get it done so quick was really, really nice. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed
I
it.
assume you had a guide next to you the whole time.
I had a map, yes.
Okay.
But unfortunately, like it lets me know like where the places are, but it doesn't the one I was using, there was probably a better one that I could have looked at, doesn't specifically say like what unlocks what on there. It says here's the item, here's this item, here's this item, and then over here's a door, but it doesn't say like what kind of door and what's required to get through it, that kind of thing. So I still had to do a ton of backtracking and a lot of like back and forth. It was just nice to be able to know like, okay, there's a whole section over here that I know I haven't been to and that kind of thing. So I just used it as like a rough overview, and I thank God I did, because I had no interest in like sketching that out or trying to keep track of it in my own head or something like that. Yeah.
Did you do Switch Online for that one?
Yes. Yeah.
Rewind?
I did a couple of times.
Uh-huh.
The worst part was at the very end, when I did not know that you couldn't get through it without a certain weapon, which I had already thought I upgraded from, and I guess is not really an upgrade, it's like a side grade. And I like had to go all the way back and get that weapon again and come back, and then it was just annoying because I kept dying at the end there. But I really enjoyed the hell out of it. I also finished Resident Evil 3. The remake on PS4, played on PS5 obviously. But man, I loved it. I thought it was great. I was really, really into it. You had asked me whether I like 2 or 3 better. And I think 2 is the better game, but I had a better time with 3 simply because there was no Mr. X bullcrap in there. I hate that whole aspect of 2. That like was such a massive turnoff, being chased by this stupid thing and not being able to freely go where I wanted to in like a free roaming environment. Like this 3 had a chase scenes, but you're like literally like running from point A to point B, and there's only like one direction to go. So it's not, it's scripted. It's not a big deal. Which I was worried about, because people had said like, oh, you're not going to like 3 then because you get chased a bunch in there. But no, it's not the same, because
it's not the same at
2,
all.
I wanted to explore. I wanted to see these other areas. I wanted to do these things. I couldn't because I had the stupid big guy. Like, and it wasn't like I wasn't scared. I was just eye rolling and like, oh, God dang it, dude, leave me alone. Like one of those. Like that's not how a horror game should be. So but anyway, enough about 2, but 3, I really, really, just the whole time I was having a blast with it.
There was only one part in that game where he actually chased you around, similar to Mr. X, and that was at the very beginning of the game when he first introduced to him. And then the rest of the game, it's just more scripted, running like you were talking about from point A to point B.
Even that beginning part, you're in like an area that has like a loop, but you're still like, exactly where you're going to go. And it's literally like a 5-minute segment. If that, it's nothing.
Like, I do feel like though there was some areas that I wanted to unlock because I got a key or something that I needed, or the fire hose or whatever. And I couldn't do it because I was being chased by him constantly. And I was like, screw it. And I just went ahead and used the fire hose and went to the next area.
There was nothing that was like locked with him. The only thing that would be quote locked is if you like shoot him and you knock him to his knees. He doesn't die obviously, but you get items for doing that in some cases. So that was a reason to do that, but you'll always have an opportunity to go back to the other stuff when you get the second and the time to do it. So, but I really, really like 3 a lot. It was a good game.
Cool.
And then I started Chrono Cross, the remastered version. I'm about halfway through that now. I just got to, for anybody who's played it, I got to the big switch without spoiling it. That's about where I'm at. A little bit past that. and I have to be honest, I am not enjoying it as much as I remembered enjoying it
Really? Oh
earlier
man.
on. And I think it has to do with like I don't hate it. I'm not having a bad time with it at all. The music is amazing. I actually like the combat more than I remembered. Especially now that I'm like, I remember when I was younger playing through it. I was always like, I always struggled with summons and like, how the hell are you supposed to get a solid color on your elements? Like, this is BS. Now I know how to manipulate it a little bit more, and switching characters before their energy goes to max and that kind of thing, and like actually messing with the turn order and that kind of stuff. I don't remember ever doing that when I was a kid. So I basically just played it straight and never had that opportunity. So that's been cool. But the world itself is so small. Even though you're exploring two, there's really not that many zones or places that you go. I like, one of the things I love about Chrono Trigger is you've got like I guess if you look at it like side by side comparison, the world itself is probably about the same size, but Chrono Trigger has 6-7 different time periods, all with the same world that all have a handful of places in them. This one has two, and it's just like so condensed and so much smaller. It just doesn't feel as like grand as Chrono Trigger did to me. I like it, but I it's kind of having the same effect that Final Fantasy 12 did after replaying it all these years later, which is I'm just like, this isn't as amazing as I remembered it from back then. So we'll talk about that on next month's episode. But and then I've been playing. I'm still chugging along through Guild Wars 2 with Brian. We're on the first expansion. And that game is really, really good. It just keeps getting better and better. We have had some incredibly epic like fights that we've gone through that you can do co-op with and stuff. And it's been a blast. And then Trails in the Sky second chapter I've been playing on PC as well.
Man,
I love the first game, and I am loving this one.
that's awesome. I keep hearing that that's the series I need to play, but I just haven't yet.
It's very text heavy. Very text heavy.
Yeah.
Oh, I finished speaking of text heavy, I finished what's it called?
Radical Dreamers?
No, Triangle Strategy. Oh, I did finish Radical Dreamers. And it was fine. Yeah. Can't even. Did you play it?
I played about, I don't know, a quarter of it.
Oh, really? Oh, Mr. It doesn't count unless you play Radical Dreamers first.
Dude, all I wanted to do was go in and look at the scenery and stuff and look at how the game has been upgraded. I couldn't do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's no saving. And so you have to literally play it all in one shot. And if
you can
have a
save.
guide, you can? How?
Yeah, there's what's the button on the top? It's the X button. It's the X button on the Switch. So if you push the X button, it'll bring up a menu where you can save.
Really?
Yeah. So it'd be the triangle for you if you're playing it on PlayStation.
No, I could have sworn I tried that too. I couldn't find any way of saving in there. I did it all in one shot.
I saved right before I quit and started Chrono Trigger.
Then you should
Cross.
Finish the stupid thing if you can
I
save
will.
it. Really?
I will.
Good Lord.
I will.
But yeah, I finished Triangle Strategy, which was fantastic. But again, super text heavy. So if that's not your thing, it might not be for you. But if you like tactical RPGs and you like really, really political storylines, especially with a lot of choice, this game has a lot of choices and a lot of different paths that the story can go. It's really, really cool. And the differences between the different paths are like pretty substantial. So definitely a good playthrough. So there you have it. The awesome 75,000 games I've been playing.
It's unusual. Usually I'm the one who has a hodgepodge of different things that I've been playing, but you've been on a roll, sounds like.
Yep.
I was gonna say, like, I think it might be a fun topic for a future show if we talk about games that maybe we had a positive or negative experience with the first time, and then the second time our perspective or opinion changed.
Yeah.
I think that might be a fun one to talk about. I've got several games when you were talking about
I think I've
Chrono
done a
Cross.
YouTube video on that.
Did you?
Mhm.
Yeah, you probably have.
So.
Well, I just started Chrono Cross last night, and I'm only 3 hours into it, but I'm liking it. I would say just as much as I did the first time. I'm already feeling the immersion of this world. It's so beautiful. Everything's been it's so vibrant and colorful, and it looks exceptionally good on my OLED Switch. The colors they just pop so well. That contrast is beautiful. And walking around through these environments and listening to the music that I love so much, like that is hands down my favorite video game soundtrack of all time. And so listening to that while taking in the visuals is really kind of a surreal experience for me, and pretty nostalgic because I haven't played this game at all since I played it 20 years ago or whenever it was.
Did you finish it back then?
Yeah. Yeah, I played through it pretty quick back then. When I was in high school, I had time to sit and play and beat video games. So anything that I played back then, I most likely finished.
Right.
Let's see. Other than that, still kicking away at Elden Ring. Although I paused on that for a bit. I started Returnal. Did I talk about this last time? Returnal?
I think you mentioned it. I don't think you went into it though.
Okay. Well, I haven't played much more of it since then, but it's the only different thing I've been playing. Returnal is pretty damn cool. That game is. I've been hearing there's nothing appealing to me visually from that game, looking at gameplay trailers or reviews or just the box art. It's nothing really looked appealing to me. It's just really dark. The enemy designs I don't think are super cool looking or anything like that. But then I popped the game in and started playing it, and there's just something about the way it feels. It feels perfect. The gameplay controls are just perfect. And it's fun. You walk around through these areas and it's a roguelike. So if you die, you basically restart again from where you started, and then you start progressing through the level again or through the world again, and everything's changed. All the areas, there's a different layout. Places that you memorized where they were in the first playthrough are going to be different on this playthrough. So, it's a roguelike. If you're not into roguelike games, you're not going to love this one. I'm not. I think I've finally come to terms with the fact that I just really like roguelikes. It's a gameplay style that I can get into and enjoy. I love that small little bit of progression. You get through a level or a world, and then you go take on a boss, and then he kicks your butt, and you're restarting again. But I'm restarting with a little bit more than what I had the first time, so it's a little bit more, and I'm just going again. And I don't know, it doesn't feel repetitive because everything's changed up on me, but it still feels familiar. So I know what I'm doing, and I know what I need to do, but I know it's going to look different as I'm doing it. And it's that to me is just fun, and it's a loop that keeps me coming back. Fair enough. I also really appreciate that game just throws you right into it. Any game that will start you off in the action without loaded tutorials and reading and story and all that stuff, and just let me play the game, it's gonna attract my attention a lot more so than something that doesn't. I don't know.
I think what you mean though is at least as long as it's intuitive, if you're able to figure it out as you play the game.
Right.
Because a game like Crystal Chronicles, for instance, was not very intuitive. So it's really hard to just jump into that. I remember we had a hard time with the freaking tutorial itself because it was so unintuitive. So I think, just to clarify a little bit.
Well, as long as they can drip feed mechanics to me, then I'm okay with that. But if you give me an info dump at the beginning of the game, I'm not going to retain any of it because I don't even know how to play the game yet.
Right.
But not just that, but story. If a game starts off with just tons of story. Unless it's a story that can really grab my attention from the get-go, it's not what I want. Like, I want to jump into the gameplay first, then start giving me story. You know, that's just always been my perspective on games. Like, I play games because I want to play them. Everything else I think is secondary. So, and it adds to the experience. So there was another game that I played recently, and I can't remember what it was, but it did the exact same thing where it just put me right into the action, and I got started, and I appreciated the hell out of that. Gosh, what was that? I can't remember. Well, I've also been playing Rune Factory 5 a little bit. That's pretty fun. I like it. It's
very, very mixed things.
So the things that I keep hearing negative about it are the frame rate, and that doesn't bother me. I mean, I've never been bothered by frame rate issues unless it's
playable.
Yeah, exactly. And for a game like this, it's just running around town, planting stuff in your garden, talking to people. Then you go dungeon exploring, and the dungeon exploring feels good. It's fun. I don't have any issues with the frame rate with that. I mean, it does stutter here and there, but it doesn't detract from the experience at all. That's been pretty fun. Gosh, I wish I could remember that. I really wanted to mention that game that I just started, that just put me right into the gameplay, and I don't remember what it was now. Well, as far as I can remember, that's all I've been playing. I haven't had a heck of a lot of game time this month. It's been a super busy, hectic month.
I did remember one more that I've been playing.
What is that?
Switch Sports.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I like it a lot. It is, I mean, honestly, as long as if you liked Wii Sports, you'll like this. That's
it just more of the same?
It is more of the exact same. It's a little bit like, there's a little more to it, and that some of the sports are different, which I'm really confused on, like, the lack of sports. Like, this is a whole, like, 2 console generations later, you couldn't add more sports or keep things like baseball in there, or have golf in at launch. Like, it's just it's a little weird. But it's honestly a very Nintendo move. But the games that are there, I'm having a good time with. I have not tried soccer yet, which I've heard some people say it's pretty fun. And I haven't tried tennis, but from what I understand, it's just a lot like badminton, which I have played. And I was never crazy about badminton or tennis on the original, because you're literally you just go like this, and that's it, and just, whatever. But I like the and I haven't tried volleyball yet either. I've mainly been playing bowling. But before I talk about bowling, which is my favorite by far, the sword fighting was actually pretty fun. I was kind of impressed with that. It's literally just like, you just do moves, and you're doing moves and counters and blocking, and it's just neat. I actually was really impressed with, like, the movements and stuff. Like, it reminded me of baseball in the Wii Sports, where, like, when you would hold the bat and you, like, move the Wii mote around, you could see the bat move in that direction. I always thought that was the coolest thing in the world. This is kind of the same way, where the sword will move and mimic your movements and stuff. Really, really neat. But bowling is like, it's bowling. It's the same way as in Wii Sports, but the online play is actually really cool. They turned it into like a battle royale kind of thing, where so you start with, like, I don't know, like 18 people or something like that, all bowling together, and you bowl 3 frames at a time, and every 3 frames, the bottom X amount of people get eliminated. And so you just basically keep going until all 10 frames are bowled, and at that point, there's only 3 people left, and it's first, second, third place. It's really, really fun, and I'm having a blast with it. And that's that you unlock cosmetics and deck out your character and that kind of thing. Is it worth $40? I don't know. I think it could be, if they actually decide to do anything with it other than just bring golf, which I doubt they're going to. I imagine golf will be it, and that's done. But I am having fun with it. I think if you enjoyed the original Wii Sports, I think Switch Sports is a fun upgrade for it. especially if you have people to play with locally, because I think the online will get boring quick, as well as solo play, because it's, there's just only a handful of games on there, and it's just, there's not a ton. Definitely not game of the year, but it is fun for a little quick play. So,
is the accuracy of the Switch remote better than the Wii, or the same, or
feels the same, honestly.
Feels the same.
The only difference is I honestly, like, there's one thing I like about the original better, and that is, I don't know if you remember like how much you played it, but so when you go to bowl in the original, you would hold down the Z button on the Wiimote as you were going to bowl.
Yeah.
And you let go as you were doing it. In this one, you don't let go. You have to hold it the whole time, and it lets go automatically for you.
Oh,
and so it's a little weird. Yeah, it's a little awkward. It took me some getting used to.
That was part of like the skill, is knowing when to release.
Right. And now if you try to release it, your character will just go and like freak out, and the ball won't go anywhere. It's weird. Yeah. So you can.
What about the size of the Joy-Cons versus a Wii remote? The Wii remote just feels natural to me, and I don't think the Joy-Con would feel that way.
It's the same. Honestly, yeah, it's the same. I really haven't had any issues with that. You can still do the spin and all that stuff, and it works just the same. So
cool.
I like it. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to check that out. I think I'll wait for a sale. I mean, $40 is cheap, but I'm not in any hurry to play more Wii Sports.
Nintendo sale.
Yeah. Well, actually, they just put Mario Party Superstars on sale for $40 yesterday or Sunday, so I did buy that. Okay. I've been waiting for a sale on that one, and I keep hearing good things about it, so I think it'd be a fun one to play, and it's online, so we ought to like do an online Mario Party sometime. I know you've been.
I'm down. I'm always down
talking about it.
Heck yeah! You want to get into Nintendo talk?
Let's do it.
All right. So, with the Switch being out for what, 6 years now, something like that, I think.
Isn't that crazy?
It's insane to me, because it's still
5 years. It came out in 2017.
Okay. 5 years still. I think I would assume Nintendo's like looking at what their next gen console is going to be at this point, at least like coming up with plans and whatnot. And I have no idea as far as development, because I don't know how long that stuff takes, but I know it's typically like a couple of years in the making. So I would imagine at this point they're in the planning stages at least, if not further along. And we kind of figured, why the hell not? Let's talk about Nintendo and go over our what Nintendo consoles we like, and do a top 5 list of our top 5 Nintendo consoles. This includes anything from NES to the Game Boy to the Virtual Boy to the 3DS to GameCube, Switch, all that stuff. Anything that Nintendo's come out with that was a console. You want to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah. Right. Well, because I had to put this in order, I had to first choose my favorites and then choose which ones I like the least out of my favorites. So
what's your number 5?
That's hard for me. I'm gonna go with GameCube for my number 5.
Okay.
The GameCube has a lot of nostalgia for me, more so than a lot of other Nintendo consoles. And that's why it's on here. I've told the stories in the past about Amy buying the GameCube for me, basically, when we were dating, as a way to get me to come over more often, and it worked. And I just remember like sitting down on the couch in her apartment and playing Mario Sunshine. I played that all the way through, and I played Zelda Wind Waker, and I also played the Ocarina of Time all the way through on that with the collection that it came out with. And I remember playing a lot of Wave Race, and what else did I play on that? Mario Kart. We played Mario Kart together.
Heck yeah.
Those are like the main ones that I remember playing a lot of. NFL Blitz, I think, is another one that I had. And it was to me, because I never had a Nintendo 64, I used the GameCube as my way to get into that style of game that I missed. So like I played Nintendo 64 at my friend's house all the time. but I never got to sit down and really enjoy it for myself and take my time and play through anything. So like being able to play through Mario Sunshine was super cool to me, and it was just like, this is the proper.
I still have never finished that one.
Oh yeah, I loved it. It's like, this is the proper upgrade to Mario 64, even though it really kind of isn't. It's kind of it's really its own thing.
It is a good game though.
Yeah, and even with the Zelda games, like I got to experience Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, which is still my favorite Zelda game. I've got a lot of favorites. Like I think Mario Sunshine is probably up there as one of my favorites.
I think kind of bringing it back to earlier, Crystal Chronicles, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. If you had played it on the GameCube, I think you would have liked it a lot better. Especially if you had like a full group.
I had it on the GameCube, and I remember even I already had a Game Boy Advance. I thought that idea of being able to use your Game Boy Advance and the controllers at the same time would be fun. Problem is, I didn't have anybody to play it with me except for Amy. And then I think I had her play with me once, and she was like, she noped out.
Yeah. I had a full group of 4 of us that played for a good like 8 or 9 weeks. We just met once a week, and we just hopped on at my apartment and did a whole bunch of levels. Got to the very end where we hit a difficulty spike and never finished it. But leading up to that, like just the idea of having basically like you're playing on your main TV, but then you've got your own like screens and stuff, and you're doing your menus and everything like that on your own individual screen. It was what I wanted from like Secret of Mana, you know, prior to that. Because, you know, the most frustrating part about multiplayer in that game is whenever somebody goes into a menu, it freezes it for everybody else. This did away with that and made it so much better. It was great. The GameCube is fantastic.
Well, I thinking about it some more, I also played Pokemon Coliseum. That was my favorite Pokemon game for a long time. And I remember
I want to play it. I haven't played it yet.
When I had that, I don't think I'd played through a proper Pokemon game yet up until that point, but I always wanted to. I just never had a handheld system to do it with. And so I was hoping to get somewhat of that same experience with Coliseum. And it wasn't. I mean, it's similar in that you are catching Pokemon and it's an RPG, but that's the extent of it. The whole purifying Pokemon thing was a whole nother like mechanic that I thought was really well done and fun. And the fact that you could steal Pokemon away from people was just a really cool concept. There aren't wild Pokemon in that game. Like all your battles are with other trainers, and you are basically, if you've battle a trainer, a bad trainer, and they've made this Pokemon bad, you can catch it from the trainer and then purify it on your own. It was cool. It was really cool. But I remember playing through that and connecting it with I ended up getting Pokemon Silver and transferring Pokemon from Silver, or no, maybe it was from Coliseum. I just remember taking my Coliseum Pokemon and putting it into one of the handheld games. I don't remember which one it was.
That's cool. Yeah.
It was fun. I had a lot of fun with the GameCube. I think I had more time as far as Nintendo consoles go. I had more time in the GameCube than I think I had in a lot of other Nintendo consoles, even still today. Besides the 4 that I'm going to name off. But
yeah.
What's your 5?
Very cool. My number 5 is the Nintendo 64. I loved this system so much. I had bought it from my cousin. I've told the story a handful of times of how the first time I played Nintendo 64, I hated it because I could not figure out how to work that stupid controller because I didn't know what the freaking control stick was. I had no idea. I kept trying to use the D-pad to control Mario. That doesn't work. It just messes with the camera, which is really dumb. So I thought it was really stupid. Hi, buddy. What's going on? So my cousin taught me how to do it and everything. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then GoldenEye came out and it just blew everybody away. And that and Perfect Dark and Mario Kart was so good. I remember Blast Corps on the system. I remember getting the graphics upgrade, the pack for it for Donkey Kong 64, which is such an underrated game and more people should play it. And Diddy Kong Racing is amazing and gives Mario Kart a run for its money. And there's just so many games. Ocarina of Time, good lord. Even Majora's Mask, which I'm not a crazy big fan of, but I know is beloved by so many people. And I had a good time with it. I just didn't like 3D mechanic thing. And then also quite frankly, the simplest thing was seeing that thing and seeing 4 controller inputs in the front of it.
Yeah.
And being like, this is, pun intended, a game changer. Like, this is incredible. We're going to get to play with 4 people without having to buy any stupid adapter. Like, this is insane. I'm so ready for this.
Yeah.
And the games that came out are just, that's one of my favorite eras to like root through when I'm looking at my old Nintendo Power issues, is like the N64 and seeing those games and everything like that. And the games that were pushed that, ended up being flops and everything, the coverage that was done in Quest 64, man, people are looking forward to that. But
I remember that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember playing it and not crazy about it. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful system. And the games still, a lot of them hold up to this day, in my opinion. The graphics might be a little tough to look at in some cases, but freaking Smash Brothers started there. Mario Party started there. It was a lot of like really cool beginnings, and it was the start of something really cool when it came to local multiplayer for Nintendo. And that's a trend they stuck with for consoles, moving on down the line. And I really, really appreciate that. So that is my number 5, N64.
Well, and honestly, a lot of the Nintendo franchises that we know today and how they play all started with the Nintendo 64.
Yep.
Like, very few of them go back to their roots beyond that. It's like most of them carry on the foundation, the 3D, brand new 3D foundation that was started on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for my number 4, it is another console that I didn't own, but I enjoyed nonetheless. It was another one that I played a lot at my friend's house, and that's the Super Nintendo. And I've mentioned this before on the show, like, I don't have a ton of nostalgia for the system, but the games that I did play were pretty amazing to me at the time. And some standouts for me are Mega Man X2, Street Fighter, Mario Kart, Mario World. There was another one we played a lot. I think it was RoboCop versus Terminator. Really weird game, but I remember playing that one a lot at my friend's house and having a ton of fun with that. What else was there? We played Bomberman quite a bit. And I don't know. Like, I didn't play many of the single player games. A lot of the games we played were multiplayer games because it was what we could play when we were over there. But I remember with Mega Man X2 specifically, and I think that's why Mega Man really stands out as one of my favorite franchises today. And it all started with the Super Nintendo there. Even though I'd played Mega Man 2 just briefly on the NES but prior to that. But I just remember Mega Man X2 is where I discovered like the graphics, the music, the gameplay, the acquiring of abilities, and the difficulty of the game. And I just remember sitting there with my friend, and we would take turns getting through levels and trying to beat the game. And I think we stayed up all night and got up the next day and played all day. I don't think we ever even actually beat the game, but we did get really close. We at least made it to the final boss. And I had so much fun with that, and I that has stuck with me ever since. So Super Nintendo's on there. And actually, more that I think about it after talking about it, I think Super Nintendo, can I make a switch? Super Nintendo's on my number 5 and GameCube's my number 4.
Fair enough. I would talk about the Super Nintendo, but I will have plenty to say when I get to it on my list. Spoilers.
When we get to number 1.
Who said that? What are you talking about? All right. My number 4. If you're so knowledgeable, what's my number 4?
Your number 4? Nintendo DS.
Nope.
Okay.
Not even close. It is the original, the OG, the NES. I love this console still to this day. I like when I was dating Amanda still, she lives in Georgia, but when I would go out there to visit her, we would play Nintendo. Like when we had free time and stuff, she has an OG Nintendo. I had a whole bunch of doubles of NES games, so I just basically gave it to her and was like, here you go, stack. And like we beat Bubble Bobble 2-player, which is not an easy thing to do, let me tell you.
That's fun.
That is a tough game, but it is so much fun, especially if you've got somebody to play with. It's great. And also underrated game on the Switch, Bubble Bobble 4 is fantastic, especially if you've got people to play with. It's absolutely a wonderful experience. Anyway, but like the NES is, where it all started for me. It's where I knew that I loved video games. Contra is the first game that I ever really remember repeatedly beating over and over and over again. And no matter how many times I beat it, I always wanted to keep going. I always wanted to keep playing because I love that game so much. Still to this day, whenever, well, I guess not to this day because they've passed away, but up until when my grandparents passed away a few years ago, anytime I would go visit them in Pennsylvania, it was tradition that I would go in the basement. They still had the NES hooked up. I would beat Contra. I can beat that game in about 15, 20 minutes now. Just because I muscle memory and I know it like the back of my hand. And it's still so good. But the Mario games, Mario Brothers 3 is the toughest game that I can remember beating. Or early on, because I beat tougher games later on. If anybody's played Little Nemo, the Dream Master,
Love that game.
Beaten that game a few times, and that was no small feat. That is a tough game.
It is a tough game. I could never, whenever you get the power where he can shoot the wand, I could never get past that level. And I think that's the last level, actually.
It is. That's what you have to use to fight the dragon. Yeah. At the very end. That is a tough game, but it's a really, really cool game. I mean, Nintendo's where it started, Mega Man. That's where I played Mega Man 2 so many times. I only finished it legit once, but I would typically because I really like the whole idea of picking which guys you wanted to fight. So I basically just play up to Dr. Wily's castle, and then I'd play 5 minutes into it, and then just call it. But I really, really enjoyed just the aspect of being able to pick which way I went. Zelda, I still go back to this day every so often and just, play a couple of levels just because I love that feeling of just the original top-down regular Zelda. It's still a great game.
Also, side note, if you want to see, JJ did a review of the original Zelda 3 years ago. That's an excellent video. I highly recommend
it's my first review that I did. It ends very abruptly. It was before
it does, but
very much editing.
But the flow of it was really nice. I enjoyed that video.
I think it's my most viewed video on
cool
on the channel. Yeah. I still every now and then, every few weeks, we'll get a comment or two on there. But I mean, there's just so much. I still will never get tired of the NES. Yeah. I love that console with all my heart, and it's just, from a technical standpoint, obviously they have better consoles. They're all, there's better games. They've come a long way since back then, but the fact that it just is where it all started for not just me, but so many people. And that was back before the internet. That was back when everything was word of mouth. I had no idea Nintendo Power printed the Konami code. I learned it from my cousin, who learned it from his friend, who learned it from his friend. It was everything was word of mouth. Everything was just so much more personal. Yes, we were sitting in front of our TVs playing these games, but we were all sharing secrets with each other. We were all talking to each other, interacting and talking about these games that we had finished and played and loved. And frankly, had no idea how far video games would come from there, because you look at those and you compare that to a game I don't know, Horizon, Forbidden West that's out now. And it's good Lord, games have come such a long way. But back then, what we saw in those NES games was what we see now in Horizon Forbidden West, if that makes sense. Because our imaginations just took off while we were playing these games. And it was just amazing to explore these worlds. Zelda was a massive world back then. We were dude, there's so much here, and you can go anywhere you want. It's crazy. You look at it now, you play it for the first time, you're this is, boilerplate. Just here's a few screens and you can go through. No, it was a huge, giant fantasy world that you were exploring back then. And it was amazing. So yes, I love the NES with all my heart. It's amazing. And I will never, ever get tired of finding NES games that I remember from back in the day. Another review I did, Adventures of Lolo, Everybody should go play that. It is on the Switch store or Switch online spiel, and it's an amazingly stupid, charming game. I love it. It's one of my favorite games in the NES. So,
yep. Well, my number 3 is also the NES, and well, yours was number 4. Mine is the Anyway, everything you said is absolutely true, and that's why it's on my list. It's one of those consoles, and that it was my first experience with video games, and I think is why I am still in love with video games today. I just remember going to a friend's house and seeing it there and being like, what in the world is this? This is incredible. Like, I was instantly in love with it, had to have one. And I think I got one either that Christmas or the following Christmas, not too long after. And I just, man, like you're not kidding. Like, you would, with the Contra thing, I would play through games over and over and over and over again, just trying to beat it or trying to beat a high score or whatever the case may have been. And you never got sick of it. It wasn't a big deal to repeat playthroughs or start over from scratch. And, that might be where my enjoyment of rogue types kind of stems from, actually, because it's kind of what you're doing. You're starting over. You don't get to carry over anything with you other than the knowledge and experience of having the practice that you had with previous
in most games.
Yeah. But the graphics weren't the greatest, but it wasn't, you didn't think about
back then
that.
It was.
Yeah, it was amazing. When I was a kid, like I played the NES, and every game was, I was just blown away by the graphics and the level of immersion. When you're young, it's so much easier to get immersed into your game. And I was able to do that with almost every NES game I played, unless they were just super awful games. But I remember like going and buying my first video games ever was Dream Master and Werewolf. And I remember bringing those home and just playing the crap out of both of them. Probably Dream Master a little bit more. But
did you ever see the cartoon?
Yeah, I didn't like the cartoon so much.
I haven't seen it I have it on DVD. I haven't watched it since I was a little kid, though. I don't remember it at all. But I keep meaning to go back and check it out.
I thought it was boring, and it wasn't. It didn't, to me. It wasn't a good representation of the game.
That's fair.
Even though I think the game is supposed to be supporting the movie, not vice versa. So anyway, like you're saying, with talking to kids at school and everything about the games that we were playing and talking about the secrets that you've discovered. I remember the secret in Mario where you had to jump on the turtle shell on the castle steps to get one-ups.
I never even knew that as a kid. No idea.
I didn't know. Well, I went over to my friend's house and he was talking about this, and I was like, how do you even do that? And then he showed me. He did it like the first try and racked up like 99 lives. It was like, I was so blown away. It's like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to finally beat this game. And I could never pull that trick off as much as I tried to do it. And then what sucks
in Mario 3?
Huh?
Getting flutes in Mario 3, like warping to different worlds and stuff. That was just mind-blowing.
Being able to fly up above a section of the level to find one of those flutes. Yeah. Just stuff like that. The secrets were always a lot of fun, and it was always fun to talk about. But yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia for the NES. And like you said, that's still a console that you can easily pick up and play. There's only 2 buttons, and then maybe you start and select if some games required it, but that's it. It's super simple. I can still, like with some of those games, I still have the muscle memory from playing them back then and can still run through them pretty quickly. So that's just, I think that's a style of gameplay that's kind of dead at this point. I mean, they have other games that do that, like Super Meat Boy comes to mind, but other games where repetition makes it easier, I guess. Simple game.
What would you say was your favorite NES game if you had to choose one?
Oh my gosh, dude. I think I'm gonna go with Dream Master, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, because that was one of the games that I bought for myself just on a whim based on the cover art alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought the creativity in that game was exceptional, and
Oh yeah,
you,
absolutely.
you weren't shooting at things. You were throwing candy at things to freeze them, and then you could turn into animals or ride on different animals, and
Yep.
it was fun. I thought it was a really cool game, and the music was excellent in the
Very
game
cool.
too.
Yep. Mine would have to be Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I love that game. Love that game. All right. Anything else to say about the NES?
No, I'm done.
All right. My number 3 might come as a bit of a surprise.
Let me guess. Hold on. I'm gonna say the Switch.
Nope.
Okay.
It is the Wii.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, that is a shocker.
And that was because when it first came out, I will wholeheartedly admit that I was on the Wii Sports craze with all the people that like, they tried out bowling or baseball and they were like, oh my god, I have to get this, it's amazing. And a lot of them weren't gamers, they just bought the system just for that, and then it just sat there and collected dust. I obviously wanted to play more games. I did that. I thought it was really neat. I got my console, which my console story in of itself is a whole thing that's up on my channel somewhere. But I did not like the controls necessarily. But the fact that you could plug in GameCube controllers or use other ones like, peripherals and that kind of thing to not have to play necessarily with the Wii remote and nunchuck, it was fine for me. But what really, really like brought it home for me was the virtual console aspect. I am a big fan of backwards compatibility. And not only could the original Wii play GameCube games and Wii games, and then you have this virtual console where they're like, hey, we're going to put our hundreds of games from our old libraries up on here, and you can buy those, download them, and play them on this thing. That was amazing. It was like just absolutely mind-blowing to have that, that one-stop shop right there, where I didn't mind paying for those games because I bought the ones that I wanted to play again, and I had them on there. I didn't have to like go up and change cartridges or anything like that. I could just play it right there on the same console, and I love that aspect. And quite frankly, I loved when they first had it, I liked the Miiverse stuff and everything. Like when they tried to add in the social things and stuff like that. I know it didn't go over super well, and it wasn't like, didn't last long, but quite frankly, I enjoyed that. And, with the Wii U, I liked seeing like artwork and stuff, people to draw and everything like that. It was just fun. But yeah, a lot of it has to do with just that whole backwards compatibility, the virtual console, and just giving the player so many more options. Where it is like, even, yes, you had motion controls, but you weren't forced into using them in a lot of cases either. So I really, really appreciated just the sheer amount of options that the Wii had. So that would be, my number 3, the Wii.
Goofy spoiler, Wii is not on my list, but I will say, I think it's one of my least favorite consoles of the Nintendo.
I would imagine most people would feel the same way. Yeah.
I just remember like it
Most
wasn't
gamers.
Yeah, the forced motion controls in a lot of games was a big turn off for me, and I wasn't able to connect with a lot of the games. I have a better appreciation of it now than I did then, but I do remember like wanting to love the system. I really did, and I kept waiting for that next big game to come out, and I never felt like it did. But I remember watching there was a show on YouTube, not YouTube. It was on Screw Attack, I think. No, Game Trailers. It was on Game Trailers. It was called the Wii Cast, and it was this guy, redheaded dude, and he would make those dumb, corny jokes, that was popular back then that people would do on their videos, and but he would just talk about the Wii and the games that were coming up for it, or games that he'd been playing, and he would do dumb little skits and stuff, and I enjoyed watching it. And there was another one that was actually, I think, on the Wii where you would watch it, and it was this two hosts, is a man and a woman, and they would both talk about upcoming releases and things like that, and also have really dumb skits. Sure. I can't remember what that one was called, but I used to love watching that on there. And for that reason alone, I think I have a lot of nostalgia just for the content that was built around the system, not necessarily the games themselves. So it's kind of weird.
That's right.
Okay, so I'll jump into my number 2 here. Is the You want to take a guess at what it is?
3DS.
You got it. I knew you would get it.
Mine is as well.
Is it? Okay, then we can talk about 3DS. Um, the 3DS is a system that I still play. Even with the Switch, I still play the 3DS pretty regularly. There we go. And I've got it sitting on my nightstand right next to my bed. I have my Switch and my 3DS right there. And just depending on what I feel like playing, I'll pick up one of the two. The 3DS is incredible. I really, really enjoy the 3D aspect. And I know a lot of people don't prefer it and usually will play with it off, but not me, man. If a game has 3D, I'm going to use the 3D. I just love it. And even with the new 3DS XL, that one's got the better 3D, and it really is better.
It is for sure.
Yeah,
it just drains the battery. That's why I'm not a fan of it.
Well, it's so cool. Like, and then whenever I buy a 3DS game that didn't have 3D, I would always be a little bit disappointed by that. But yeah, like not only could you play 3D games, but you could play DS games on it as well. So that was another thing that I loved about it. Like I had some DS games left over that I could just pop in and play those. It's basically like a one-stop shop for handheld games for me at this point.
Sure.
You could buy Game Boy Advance, Game Boy games and stuff on the eShop. Now I've since hacked my system, so I have like whatever I want on it, which is also a big reason why I use it. It's so fun. It's so great that I have one handheld that is basically like the catch-all for all these different handheld games, Nintendo handheld games that I can just play on it. And yeah, I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of like any specific games that I particularly enjoy on the 3DS. The Mario games are a ton of fun. Of course the Pokemon games, I love those. I think as far as Pokemon games, the Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I think, are my favorites of the 3DS Pokemon games.
They're great.
Yeah, like there's a crap ton. There's a crap ton of I guess we can cuss. There's a shit ton of of RPGs on the system too, which is something that I love. And especially when you combine that with the Nintendo DS RPGs, it's an RPG powerhouse, man. You can play whatever you want on it, new or old. It's
and
excellent.
the eShop, all the old school games on there too.
Yeah. It's like taking everything that that you said that you loved about the Wii, being able to go back and play those old games and just putting it in the palm of your hand. It's awesome. Oh, and the dual screen. The dual screen is awesome too. Oh, that seems like it was a gimmick. Obviously, like when the DS came out, I thought it was a gimmick that would go away, but they brought it back with the 3DS. But having that touch screen on the bottom and then having your top screen be the 3D, it just opened it up to a lot of unique gameplay styles. And I think they got away from what the DS used to do a lot. The DS would make the controls of some games, like I'm looking at the Zelda games in particular, and make it to where you would have to move your character with the stylus and everything. And I hated that. And I think the 3DS kind of did away with that for the most part and just went back to traditional controls. You got the analog stick in it on there and everything. And yeah, I love the 3DS.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you said is pretty much the same reasons. I adore the 3DS. It's a fantastic system. I'm not crazy about the 3D on it. I honestly, like, since the beginning, I never really used it, but the 3DS like had okay, I'm gonna sound like an asshole here. The 3DS is basically has everything I wanted out of the Switch and that Nintendo absolutely botched and failed to deliver on. 3DS has themes. You can download themes and put them on there. The 3DS and the DS both have built-in voice chat. Not the greatest, but it's still in there. How do you not put that on a newer console? Freaking the Switch just got folders, which is the stupidest thing. Where the 3DS has folders and they're implemented beautifully. They're right there on the main screen. Have you tried using the folders in the Switch? It's garbage. You're still going to the same damn place to even use it. There's no point to them whatsoever. And that came like 4 years after the thing's been out. Like it's absolutely insane. And just the freaking broken promises with all the releases that have come out and everything like that, saying like, oh, we're going to update our online games monthly and blah, blah. All of a sudden it became every 2 months, and now it's quarterly, if that, and then it's only one of the 4 consoles they have on there, and you're only getting like 3 games, which the titles are garbage, except for that like 1 out of 75% chance, or 1 out of 75 chance. It's so stupid and just pisses me off to even think about. But then I think back to the 3DS, and it's like, you know what they did? They admitted they screwed up in the very beginning. Were you an ambassador?
I wasn't.
Okay, I was, and I thought that was one of the greatest moves that they could have made. The people that had purchased the original 3DS, for those that don't know, the original 3DS when it first came out, if you bought it at launch, there was some kind of issue with it. I'm not sure if it was like, oh, I don't remember what it was, the online or there was something.
I'm pretty sure it was the price point of the system.
Oh, that's right, because they dropped it really, really soon after. That's right. Yeah. So you ended up basically paying like an extra $50 or whatever it was. And then like really soon after it released, they dropped that price point. And a lot of people were rightfully pissed. They were like, what the hell? So what Nintendo did was they instead were like, for those of you that purchased it early on, you know, we have your console codes and everything like that. All you have to do is sign in here. Or no, they did it to where like, we're going to lower the price here. But if you sign in before this point, meaning you already own the system, you've already paid for it, you can sign up to be an ambassador. And they gave you like 20 to 30 free old school games on there, like Zelda and you know, a handful of just classics that were all on there. And you just got it for free because you had, I mean, for
a lot of Game Boy Advance games. And I remember those games were not purchasable. You could only get them through the ambassador program.
It was great. And I still have it on my, you know, I was able to transfer everything over to my 3DS XL. And it like everything's on there still, and it runs beautifully. I have folders that have everything on, like it is literally like gives me everything that I would love to have on the Switch. And the Switch is just like, it pisses me off because there's so many wasted opportunities with that thing. And it's just really, really frustrating to see them do that. I'm not saying it's a bad console at all. Don't get me wrong. I love my Switch and I have a lot of fun with it. And quite frankly, I think the games look like incredible on the shelf. They're gorgeous to look at. But the system itself and the decisions that Nintendo has made on the Switch are bafflingly horrible in so many cases. And that just really rubs me the wrong way. And that's why I love the 3DS so much, because it did all those things right. And it's still, like you said, it's still great to bust out to this day and play those games. And yes, my hand will cramp up quite a bit from playing it for a long period of time, but it's still a great system. The games are still great. And I don't play a lot of action games on there anyway. So most of what I play are turn-based RPGs and everything. And I don't have to worry about it in that case. So it's a wonderful system, and it just did everything right that the Switch is not. And that's why the Switch is not on my list. And the 3DS is my number 2.
Ooh, spoiler. The Switch is not on your list. You know that
I would imagine after that little speech there, you would probably assume that the Switch isn't my number 1.
I'm a bit surprised though, like that it's not on your list, because I think the Switch is my number 1, by the way, because I'm gonna go straight into this.
Yeah.
I think the Switch is a great catch-all system. Think of all the re-releases we've seen on the Switch from all generations, going back to, you know, NES through through more modern stuff. You know, I don't know, I can't think of an example, but
yeah, because there aren't very many
what
re-releases.
There's a ton of re-releases. I'd say the majority of my collection of Switch games are re-released titles, like old PS1 games and things like that.
Oh, so multi-platform stuff. That's not really Nintendo though.
Well, yeah, I mean, to a certain extent. And then I would even count remasters in there, or remakes, not remasters, remakes, like the Bubble Bobble that you were talking about, things like that. They've got a ton of those on the system. They've got a ton of compilations like the Turrican compilation, the Sega Master Collection, or whatever it's called. You've got Atari collection and all these different collections on the Switch, and it's great. Add to that the online portion that lets you have access to NES, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and now Nintendo 64. That's really cool. I don't know, like I love the way the Switch looks. I love the way it feels. I love that I can hook it up to my TV if I feel the need. I love that all the games come on these little carts still, and they're very collectible. I love the amount of RPGs on the system. I love all the action games on the system. Like, I feel like the Switch to me is the ultimate culmination of every kind of game or game style that I like, all wrapped into a very versatile little system, something I can take with me or play at home. And I think that it nails it so well. And as far as like a collector, they keep on releasing awesome games for it. And whether those are re-releases or new games or whatever the case may be, there's seemingly a never-ending supply of games that I can pick up for that. It is now I have more games on the Switch than any other console, physical games. I have like over 150 Switch games, and I don't have any signs of stopping. It's been a fun new system for me to collect. I feel like I've gotten the majority of what I wanted to get with older games for older systems. And so my focus has been on the Switch, and anytime they release something new that I want to add to the collection, it's great. And I can get in on the ground level now before they blow up in cost later, because they will. And just grow my collection that way. I love the Switch. It's an incredible system. I boast about it all the time on the podcast, and it ultimately is the perfect handheld for me. I'm just waiting for what's next. I think it's time for something new, something improved, something faster, something that looks better.
Something that isn't bullshit with their promises that they actually deliver on.
And
something that has themes,
is,
something that has correct folders, something that has built-in voice chat, something that doesn't still have Joy-Con drift 5 years after release.
I feel like those are all problems. They're annoyances, yes, but they're problems with big companies that are, getting a little bit too popular for themselves.
But then why did they nail it so well with the 3DS?
I think because they weren't quite there yet with the 3DS. If
Nintendo, they've been there since day one.
I feel like with the Switch, they had a little bit of a lull there with the Wii U, and they weren't selling very well. And when the Switch came out, it's starting to it's exploded in popularity. They still are selling new consoles. They have no real big reason to release a new console at this time, because they still sell Switches like crazy. They're riding high right now, and so they don't feel the need to have to deliver on these promises or anything like that. They're very much like Apple. Apple keeps like trying to, they'll take steps backwards and stuff and take things away from you that you enjoyed, such as a USB port.
But therein, that I can bring up the ambassador program again. Why did they back then realize we effed up? We're going to help our players out and give them this thing. So why not do that now in some form or fashion, or just deliver on the promises, the original promises? That's all I care about.
I don't think they feel like they need to. I think they're getting,
from a monetary standpoint, you're probably right. They're rolling in it and they don't give a shit. It's like, Nintendo, you guys aren't Sony. Let's be real.
But I also feel like they think they are. I think they think that they are, the king of video games out there right now. And I don't know. I keep hearing a lot of negativity come out of Nintendo headquarters. And I think it's getting a little bit too corporate, and they're focused more on the bottom line than they are with customer satisfaction. And I think that's going to hurt them in the long run if they don't correct.
That's why it's not on my list.
I'm going to have to agree with you though. Like, all those things are very valid. They don't detract from my experience at all, but they are crap. The fact that we don't have themes is pretty crazy, and they said that we were going to get themes back when the system first released. Also, like, making it to where you can use Bluetooth headset like 4 years after the damn thing came out is stupid. Especially when the Vita had it from the get-go, and the Vita came out like 10 years ago. It's I agree with you on all of your points. At the same time, though, it doesn't bother me that much because I spend most of my time on the Switch playing games, not going through menus. So
it's still
it
a
doesn't bother me.
fantastic system. It has a great library. There's no question about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It really just the corporatism, and just the flat out like seeing what they did with a 3DS and how well they handled that. It was just kind of like, what happened? What did you?
So
What?
I don't think we'll see that Nintendo again unless they take another hard fall. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. You think about it with the console wars between Xbox and PlayStation, they flip-flopped on being, arrogant and, with Xbox saying we're going online only and this and that. And then they come back and now they're a more consumer friendly company.
Not to mention, and this isn't a new issue for them, but they're terrible with like stocking things and keeping things like available to people. I'm still trying to get a Nintendo 64 Switch controller. It still is sold out.
That's insane.
All the time. It's absolutely crazy.
That thing's been out for a year now, right?
At least. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's still sold out every single time I go to the website. It's absolutely insane. I've wanted one forever, but that's a constant thing. They've done that for God knows how long. God, remember like the classics? Jesus. I mean, their lack of foresight is just unbelievable to me in so many ways.
I agree.
It's like when they nail something, they really nail it, and it just works so well. Like the switching between portable and the TV, genius, and it works beautifully. It's fantastic. But when they screw something up, oh my God, they bomb so hard. Wii U. That had a lot to do with marketing too, which don't even get me started on their marketing department. Anyways, the Switch nonetheless is a fantastic system. It really is. I mean, I'm not going to go into it again, but you heard everything that I said. So it is what it is.
Well, and I think
we don't even have a single Final Fantasy on there, like from the Super Nintendo or Nintendo era. It makes no sense to me at all.
The fact that those came out on Steam and nowhere else just blows me away. The Switch is such I know we harped on this before, but the Switch is such a perfect system for those remasters.
I do think those will eventually show up on console. Why they weren't originally? I mean, that for all we know could have been a Square Enix decision, which more than likely it was.
It is. Square Enix is no better, by the way.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially nowadays. But it's frustrating because anyway. Your number one Switch.
Switch is my number one.
All right.
I am still, I know you're not excited for it, but I am still waiting on my Steam Deck. I think the Steam Deck is going to take over the Switch as my primary console.
It's not that I'm not excited for it. I definitely would like to hold it myself, just because I think it looks very uncomfortable where the thumbsticks are located on that thing. Just seems weird. I'd want to hold it myself. I do want one though at some point, just because I think it'll be really cool to like if I had one right now to be able to play Trails in the Sky rather than playing it on my PC, I would love that. It'd be perfect for it. But I think it's just way too much money at this point. So I'll wait till it drops down. And, I got my, my Steam Link back in the day when it came out, a year after it was out. I got it for $5. So it's like, not that I think this is going to be $5 anytime soon, because it's selling like crazy, but I think eventually it will come down a little bit. And if I can get $100 off or something, I'll probably do it then.
I think they finally nailed it on the hardware department, at least so it appears. So I'm excited for that.
Well, why don't you tell everybody what my number one is then?
JJ's number one is, believe it or not, the Virtual Boy. Tell us about the Virtual Boy and why it's your number one.
Well, I really like headaches and feeling dizzy. So I was like, what is the most difficult system to own and collect for that I can possibly be an annoying jackass with at every convention I go to? No, it is not the Virtual Boy. It is the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the SNES or the SNES, however you want to call it. I have talked about my love for the Super Nintendo for God knows how long. I adore
No
that
secret
system.
there. Yeah.
No, it is hands down my favorite. I was like, when I was going through my list, I had to think about every other option except for that one. It was just number one. Okay, now I'll just work my way back. It's not even a question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got my favorite game of all time. It's got a couple of my favorite games of all time, multiples of my favorite games of all time. I still love sprite-based graphics. I will still sit down and play Earthbound and Final Fantasy 4 and 3 and freaking all these, like Secret of Evermore, Secret of Mana. I love those old Super Nintendo games. They still hold up for me super, super well. I'm going to be starting Terra Enigma pretty soon, and I'm really excited to dive into that because I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. Cannot wait. And, it just, I know you said you never owned one. Is that what you said?
No,
Back in the day?
not back in the day.
Okay. When it came out, when it dropped, it was quite possibly one of the most mind-blowing things I've ever seen. Like learning the joystick on the control stick on the Nintendo 64 controller was a bit of a chore for me because I'm dumb. But it wasn't like mind-blowing. I was like, oh, cool, more buttons, whatever. It's neat. I'll learn this, whatever. But just having those extra 4 buttons on the freaking Super Nintendo controller, the LR and then the X and Y, it was just like, holy crap, there's so much I can do now. This is crazy. Like it just absolutely just blew my mind. And getting to actually sit down with that and just experience all these amazing games. It's, man, just that whole time period is just so wonderful. And I said earlier that I like to go back through my Nintendo powers and look at like the N64 games and stuff like that. Honestly, I should say basically NES through Nintendo 64. I love going through just those 3 generations are just so wonderful. I really, really just absolutely adore the console, and the library is just spectacular. And that's, another reason another reason I'm frustrated with the Switch is because I think that the Super Nintendo library on there is sorely lacking. I love that they have both Breath of Fire games and now Earthbound. That's amazing. That's awesome. But good Lord, it could have, Super Mario RPG and the Final Fantasies, Secret of Evermore. I've been waiting for a re-release on that forever. I thought we'd maybe see it on the Wii or something like that, but no, it's been no sign of it anywhere. It's just really frustrating. There's so much untapped potential in older games that I think people would actually enjoy today if they got the chance to play them. And so I would love to see that at some point, but just knowing that I have the ability to play these older games that I have with my SNES and my collection and everything is just, it's great. It's wonderful. Love the system. And it's got my favorite Zelda as well.
Going from the NES to the Super Nintendo, how did it take over your enjoyment or love of the Nintendo from there? Because the reason I'm asking this is because I went from the NES to a brief period of time. I had a Genesis before it broke, but I ultimately went from NES to PlayStation, so I skipped all of that.
A lot of it had to do with it also was the first console that was mine. We bought the NES. I remember being in the store with my mom buying it for my dad for his birthday one year, just because she was like, she had heard from his sister who was a massive gamer, my aunt, raving about it and stuff. And so she was like, "Oh, get one for Joey." Okay. And so we went to the store, we got the NES, got it for him. And of course I played it more than anything, but it was set up in the living room. And so I'd have to go in the living room and play. And this is when we still lived in Jersey. But when we moved to Kansas, I got my own 13-inch TV, like tiny little thing. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world because I had my own TV in my room. I was so excited. And that Christmas, I had asked for a Super Nintendo, and I wasn't expecting anything, but started opening presents, and I opened up one of the boxes, and it was Super Mario All-Stars. And I was like,
oh, man,
I don't have a, and like it just clicked, like, oh my God, which one is it? I started freaking out, going for it. And it was the first console that was mine, that I could set up in my room, that I could play on my own and start collecting games for me, rather than, even though, yes, I technically was the guy who got all the games and played the NES and everything like that. This was the first one that came in for me. from the beginning,
Yeah.
and it was mine. So, and it started my love of RPGs and
Right.
just
I was gonna
my
say
favorite
that,
games and
like,
everything like that. Yeah, there's so much there for me.
I think the Super Nintendo is where, like, you as a solo gamer, you can have a little bit more of like more intimate time, I guess. I don't know if that's even the word I'm looking for here, but like you could sit down and play like a story-based game and really get absorbed into it and feel like you are part of that game. Nintendo had that, but not to the extent that the Super Nintendo did.
Agreed. Yeah, just it still makes me smile to this day just thinking about it. So well, there's my top 5.
Owen is here with us. Say hi, Owen.
Hi.
Hi.
He heard we were talking about our favorite Nintendo consoles, so he wanted to chime in and give his favorite Nintendo console. So go for it, Owen.
My favorite Nintendo console right now is the
there we go.
Is the Nintendo Switch.
Oh boy. Oh geez. Oh man. Just like
these kids and their Nintendo Switches. Why is it your favorite?
What I like about it so much is I've always loved like Zelda. I know Zelda is like on like a whole bunch of other Nintendo things, but just whenever I first ever played Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I was immediately into it.
Why?
I loved everything. It's like I've never played a game like that.
But you love unlocking characters and stuff too, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that drives you to keep playing it. Yeah, you play a lot of Switch. The thing is with Owen used to be primarily an Xbox guy or Xbox kid, but I'd say he plays the Switch or PC. PC was his jam. But I'd say over the past several months, you play the Switch primarily, which is quite a change. So,
I mean, I still use the computer a lot. It's just whenever I'm bored and I don't want to use the computer, that's all I do.
One more question for you. You said when I talked to you earlier that it was a toss-up between two consoles, the Switch and the other one. What was the other one, and why was that one even in the running?
I mean, I thought of another one, but the other one that I said was the Nintendo 64.
And why is that?
The reason why I love the Nintendo 64 is I just liked everything about it.
Name one thing that you like about it.
I love like every single game.
Every single game that you played. Owen is.
He hasn't played Quest 64,
huh? We need to hook him up with that.
Do we though?
That'll sway his opinion. But no, he started playing Mario 64, and like even now, if I pop that in, he'll hear the music and run in here immediately and want to watch it. Mario 64 is one that he loves. So I wasn't too surprised to hear that at all, because out of all the Nintendo systems that I play or try to play, the N64 is the one that catches his attention the most. So.
I also really like the Wii.
Oh, you're a Wii guy. You're one of those.
See,
all right.
See. Two of my consoles. Yeah.
JJ likes the Wii too. It's on his list.
So. It's just really cool. I just love the double screen, like on the tablet thingy. And
the Wii U.
Oh,
yeah,
the Wii U.
That's as well.
We didn't talk about the Wii U. It's not on our list.
I like the Wii and the Wii U.
Why the Wii U? Because you like that little tablet? You like playing your games with this giant controller like this?
Yes.
Okay. To each your own.
What are you giving him crap for? That's the Switch, basically.
The Switch is so much thinner, though. That thing is like giant. And if you're trying to play a game,
it's more comfortable than the Switch.
No, dude. When you're playing a game,
it's got the little hook on the back. Come on, oh my god, it can rest right there. Oh, it's nice.
I hate playing games on the TV using that thing. Like if I'm just looking at it, I would much rather use a Pro controller over that thing any day.
For sure. Yeah, no, that I agree with.
Or when they would put like menus and stuff on the little screen, and you would have to do this stuff. Xenoblade Chronicles X is notoriously bad about this. Having to look down on the map, I hated it, dude. It's like, just put it there up in the corner and I'll be good. But no. Anyway,
I also my favorite game to play on that if I need to get my energy out is Wii Sports.
JJ
Me.
sounds like Owen is your type of gamer here.
You guys need to get Switch Sports. It's really good.
Switch Sports just came out and it's
And
online.
on the Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
Mhm.
And it's just like Wii Sports.
You can play it online.
My
JJ was talking about the new Switch Sports, and he said that the Wii was his favorite console, or one of his favorite consoles. So
that's also one of mine.
that's awesome.
My most favorite game to play on Wii Sports has to go to the boxing.
Ah,
Oh, I don't know why they didn't include that on Switch either. That's
yeah,
stupid.
that was a fun one.
They don't include that.
Nope.
Nope.
They have bowling
That's
there.
Nintendo for you.
All right. Well, we're gonna close this out. So go ahead and say your goodbye, Owen, and then JJ and I will finish this.
Bye.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
That was it. It's simple enough.
Thanks for coming on.
See you, bud. There you have it.
See, he's got more in common with me because he knows good stuff.
Apparently he does, I guess. Yeah, Owen is a very social kid. He's a people person. So social games like that, it's no surprise to me that he likes those types of games. So
Cool.
well, anyway, that was our list. That was a fun one to go through. I know we've told these stories several times, I think, on the show or on your channel. You spoke about them, but it's still fun to go through and talk about this stuff. I think we ought to do this again with like maybe you can't really do it with any others because they haven't been around as long, and so they don't have enough to have like
rank
a top 5.
like the PlayStation consoles because
You could
include like the handhelds and stuff in there. You've got enough for a top 5. Xbox might be tough to do.
I think it would be better to like just lump them all together. Xbox, PlayStation, Sega, and then make a list from there.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think that's where Nintendo has a unique quality. It's like it's
top
been
5
around for a long
consoles
time.
that aren't Nintendo.
Yeah, exactly. So
speaking of Xbox though, we should at some point hop back into Halo because season 2 is out and there's some new game modes apparently.
you know what? I completely forgot Halo existed until today. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about Halo. I was like, wow, how did I completely forget about that game?
Halo Infinite's gonna be a game that I'll get good at.
Dude, yeah, I'm guilty. I'm not even going to argue with that. I don't know what happened.
Man.
I just dropped off of it.
There's so much out. I'd be surprised if you didn't drop out of that. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
There's way too much out at this point. But yeah, I would like to fire it up at some point and just kind of check out the new modes, see what's going on.
I think I know what it is. It's the Xbox is in the far living room. That's the living room that Amy uses, and I have to play it on my PC.
Which living room do you use, Mr. Moneybags?
Well, I use
Jesus.
my game room, but I prefer playing games in here. So, no, not a money bag. I can tell you that much. It's the layout of our house is very odd. And
She's over in the other living room. It's next to kitchen number 3.
This is actually a dining room. This is not even a living room. My kitchen is right there. So I just converted my dining room into a game room. Hence the really ugly chandelier up here. So
fair enough. All right.
Anyway, what are we talking about next week or next month?
Next month, we are hoping that Adrian finishes Chrono Cross, and
I will.
That. Just saying.
I will. Now I'm going to do it like
I just think you're going to wait till the last week, and then you're going to be like, "Oh, I had to rush, so I didn't really like it."
Okay, I'm going to say something right here.
Mhm.
I will not be rush finishing it at the end of the month, and if I do, JJ has my permission to like dog me on it. So it won't happen.
What do I need your permission for? I'd do it anyway.
This is true, but I'm telling you that I'm making.
You can't lie
promise.
though. You can't lie about it. I don't think you would, but
No,
can't
I
lie
wouldn't.
and be like, "Yeah, it's been done for a while, for sure."
No, I couldn't do it.
Fair enough. All right. I just remember I offered to give you another month, so this is on you.
No, I'm gonna do it. We committed. We skipped a
I believe
month just for me. I'm gonna do it. And also, like, I ordered the game physically from PlayAsia, and it just got here yesterday. So I'm getting a little bit of a late start. But like I said earlier, I'm really enjoying what I'm playing so far, and I want to play it. Like, I really want to play it. So
I noticed the picture you sent me the other day. You also got Fatal Frame. Do you like the Fatal Frame games?
I do. Yeah,
Really?
I enjoy. I've only played 2. But I really enjoyed it.
That's the one that I've played. Yeah. I've only known one other person to like those games other than me, Mark.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I love horror games in general, and that game came out on the Wii U, and I never got a chance to play it. So when it re-released on the Switch, I picked it up. You can't buy that physically here; it's only in Asia. So
you can buy it on Amazon.
Well, it's the Asian
it's like
version.
$20 more, but
yeah.
Anyway.
Cool. Well, thank you all for listening. If you would like to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter. I am at Bertazoid. Excuse me. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Bertazoid. And JJ is at JJ Centennialo.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to spell it because we never spell it. You just look in the description.
Go to Game Room Revival, go to the YouTube channel, and it's in the description there.
It is.
I released one video recently. I'm kind of back-ish from my...
Yes. We didn't talk about that. You are back-ish.
Back-ish. I released a video on a potential Final Fantasy IX remake and my prediction on what it could potentially be and why. And I stand by that. I think it's interesting. Go check it out, especially if you're a Final Fantasy fan, because I think it'd be... I'm hoping that I'm right, because it would be awesome if it's the case. So
yeah. Well, definitely check out his channel if you haven't already. If you're not watching this, great content on there, dude, and I'm glad to see that you're making a slow comeback. Are you just gonna go like at your own pace this time? Pretty much, yeah. I've got my next video that I do when I do it eventually is going to be a pickups thing. I might have to do 2 parts because I mean it's been so long since I've done a video, but I picked up so much, and like a lot of it is like a lot of it'll be pretty easy to go through. Like I started collecting Wii U games because I'm at like the tail end of my Nintendo Power collection. I think I'm only missing about 40 more. And then I've got you've got like 6 or 7 coming to you. That includes those. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. But I picked up a couple of lots. I got a couple of Lego games and then like a handful of the Just Dance ones at like $3 a piece and that kind of thing. So I'm slowly working my way through the Wii U library as well to have all those, because I would love to have a complete run of those. Even though it's not on your top 5 list. It's not, but it'd be an easy like full set to get, easier full set to get than other consoles because it's a very limited library. So you should have just went for the Virtual Boy, dude. Yeah, it's the easiest then I could spend more money on that collection than the entire Wii U collection. I don't know. Like, there's only one really expensive game on that system, and it's I think it's like $1,000 maybe ish. Which is expensive, but I mean, by the time you buy all the Wii U games, it probably. What does the console go for? Because I don't have a Virtual Boy. Probably like $250 or $500. Oh, really? No. Yeah. No, last time I saw it, it was $300 at a convention about 4 years ago. No, I mean maybe it's $300, but I mean I've been seeing them for $250, and that's been that price. I guess that was time in the box and everything too. So. Well, there's only like 13 games total on the system, so like North American games. So. I'm only missing 2 of them, and they're the 2 most expensive ones. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Maybe if you rented out your 3rd living room, or my new storm shelter. There's a good sleeping space in there. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, with that, this is the Pixel Perspective Podcast signing off. My name is JJ. I'm Adrian. And as always, keep on gaming.